Hi guys, we're back. Today we're making a review about Stoicheias starter deck, and without any further ado, let's get into the game. Okay, so right chain. Okay, grade 1 is awesome. So you look at the top card of your deck, it's a grade 2 or less unit, you call it. If it's not, you put it into your soul for a difference of other grade 1s. And it's awesome because it also gets extra 5k if it's attacking from the back row. So you can use it early game as a booster and late game when your Magnolia is enabling your back row to attack. You simply use it as an attacker because it gets extra 5k, so it's already a 13k unit without any other boosts. Even if you don't get any trigger on anything, you already have a 13k attacker. A grade 2, so we're talking about Lattice now. Lattice, sure, it can get as a ride unit it's awesome, but outside of your ride deck, it's not that good again, because if you have it in your back row, it can get an extra 10k, but it costs you 1 soul. And this deck is already running quite low on soul, so you're not going to be using that often. And quite honestly, I would much rather have this guy on the back row circle instead of Lattice. So it's a 15k attacker anytime, and you don't need to use any soul for it. It's just that you do need to have a full board, to which you usually do after at least when you're at a point where you attack from the back row. And then we have Magnolia. Magnolia is awesome, like we're not even debating that. Now, okay, we have an Overtrigger now. Overtrigger, yeah, we're changing that for the Overtrigger from the first booster set, because what that Overtrigger does is essentially you get 10k power to your whole front row, you draw a card, one of your units got critical +1, and if you have the same number of cards as your opponent or more in your damage zone, you heal 1. So it's essentially just as if you would trigger all 4 triggers at once, and you also get 100 million power. I mean, that's on attack, of course. If you trigger it on defense, it's just a normal Overtrigger effect. Then front trigger. I mean, front trigger is quite good in this deck, because once you don't have boosters anymore, your front row units are going to have lower power. But if you attack with the whole back row, that means you persona row, which means your front row is already getting plus 10k. So it would be much better if you could get an extra 10k to your back row, but since you can't, I don't think that front triggers are that necessary, but it's definitely much better than in certain other decks. Okay, critical triggers. I mean, it's awesome. Heal trigger, of course. I mean, we don't even debate those two anymore. Draw trigger. Yeah, I mean, as much as I would like to have more shield, I wouldn't cut a draw trigger out of this deck in any scenario, because you really do want to see as much units as possible so you can actually get the attackers you need to make numbers big enough to hit. Okay, then we have a PG. I mean, we're replacing this PG with the new PG from the first booster set because it's just better, and it's also a rare, so it's not gonna cost you much. Then we have a grade 1. This grade 1 from your ride deck is absolutely awesome. You're keeping that on for as long as you can, because I don't think they're printing anything much better anytime soon. I mean, at least for the ride deck. the 3 copies in your deck could be replaced soon because we could get something better, but for now we're still keeping them because he's awesome. It's a 13k attacker from the back row without any boost. Also because of Magnolia it gets extra 5k, so it's an 18k attacker really. But then again, if your opponent gets trigger and puts the power on your Vanguard, that makes his or her Vanguard 23k, which means that even 5k power from Magnolia doesn't help that much. Okay, now we have Cyrus. Cyrus is an awesome card. I mean, Soul Blast 2, reveal the top card of your deck and call it. I mean, that is awesome. The only problem is that once you have a Cyrus on your rearguard circle, you need 2 Soul, and you can use this effect every turn, but Soul is already a problem in this deck. So I don't really think that you need 4 copies, but you would still want to put him to the field as soon as possible. Okay, now we're going to skip Magnolia for now. Okay, I mean, vanillas, we just throw them out. I don't think we have to debate that. Okay, then we have Lettice. Yeah, Lettice, I would replace Lettice as soon as possible. I mean, he's a great card on your Vanguard circle, but it's just a 10k attacker if you have it in your front row. And if you have it in your back row, it can get extra 10k power for Soul Blast 1. But then again, this deck is already so soul heavy that you don't really want to use this that much. I mean, if you're on your finishing turn, you Persona Ride, you have 1 Magnolia in your soul, so you could Soul Blast 1 to push a bit harder. But then again, I think that you don't really want this one in your back row all that much. I mean, we're going to discard now. No, not that one, to the Tiger. And this guy gets 5k power if you have 4 other rear guards, which means if you have a full field, this guy is 15k. And this guy is just awesome because it's always a 15k attacker, because you're always going to have a full field when you are attacking from the back row. This one, yeah, for Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1, it gets boost and extra 5k power. I mean, sure, it's a 15k booster early game, and this card would actually be pretty good if it would cost Counter Blast 1. But since it's also Soul Blast 1, and deck is so soul heavy already, I don't really think that we have space for that in this deck. So I think we should replace that as soon as possible also. And now we got to the Grade 3, to our Magnolia, that we only have 4 copies of. I mean, we have 4 copies of every main Grade 3, but we only play 1 Grade 3 in this deck. And Magnolia is just overall awesome. Like, on attack, on the end of the attack, sorry, you Counter Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards, and it can attack from the back row and get extra 5k power. Now, if you Persona Road, you do that to 3 of your rear guards, and that means that you can attack 6 times with every one of your units that turn. And if you have enough power, this is a really big push, but the problem of this deck is that usually the power level is not that big, so you can essentially get stopped by just 1 trigger, and your opponent is safe after that, because most of your units are barely hitting over 13k. Okay, and now the last one. So we are on a branded gate, and talking about the riot chain, I mean, Grade 1 is awesome. It searches your prison, so you can start imprisoning things. Then Grade 2 imprisons one card from your opponent's hand, which is awesome. Not so much when you have it in the rear guard though. And talking about the Great Free, I mean, this card, Seraph Snow, is just amazing. I mean, I love it. I'm probably gonna play this deck for a long time, and I already know that I will probably be maining this, or maybe I will be maining the Gator Sanctuary, the OTT build. But nothing's sure yet. We will see when I started playing the OTT build and actually get a feel for it. And we have the over trigger, as in every other deck. The trigger lineup is the same. Now, front triggers, once again, I don't really feel like you need the over triggers, although out of all 5 decks, I think that this one could use the front triggers the most. And then we have grade 1s. So, Cyber, where are you?
Playing a different card game. Be right there.
Okay, so apparently we're doing this one by ourselves.
No, yeah, don't worry. You just then give me a warning to join.
Don't worry, like, I know you hate this deck, so I'm gonna let you sit it out.
No, don't worry. I'm coming. I'm coming. Tabletop is being opened. I'll be there in a minute.
Automatic caution. I mean, this card is pretty good. I mean, I do usually use it as a booster because it boosts for 10k, but as a 10k shield, it's also pretty awesome in a format when we can use as much shield as possible because we really don't have enough. So having 4 copies of this as a 10k shield is pretty big. So I don't know, I might keep that one even after we get the first booster set. It really kind of depends on what we get in the booster set. Then PGs, I mean,
getting replaced with the new ones.
Yeah, I mean, like in pretty much every other starter deck. I mean, the new PGs are just so much better. And they're only rares, so it's not like you are going to spend that much money on them. You're probably gonna be able to get, what, a playset for about $2? Maybe even less.
Not the problem I had will be, well, when V came out, spending $40 on my draw PGs.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, I do remember that. I
yes,
remember when Bermuda first came out, when the draw PGs were going for $30 a pop.
Freaking Dark Shield Maclear was 10 when he came out. At least not when I was putting the deck.
Hey, but after the first tournament, when the draw PG for Shadows was, I think, the promo for judges,
Yes.
the judge promo was actually cheaper than the double R.
Yes.
So that was kind of nice to see. I mean, something you don't see a lot. Okay, great one from the right chain. I mean, this card is awesome. Like, even if you play it on the rear guard, you get the draw, so it's really huge to have that. And Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, I mean, you soul charge 3 cards from the prison, so I don't really feel like you have to be that careful about soul. And outside of the mirror matches, you don't have to be that careful about the Counter Blast either, so you can easily afford 1 Counter Blast, 1 Soul Blast to draw a card. Okay, now we got to the grade 2s. Okay, as I mentioned previously, the grade 2 from the right chain, I mean, it's awesome when you ride it. Later on, it's the same as the grade 2 in the Dragon Nation, except it only gets extra power on the rear guard circle. And I already said that I would change the one from the Dragon Nation, because even with a 2k boost, it hits on 12k. So when you are going against a Grade 2 Vanguard, that Vanguard is already on 10k, so 2k doesn't really make the difference unless you have an 8k booster. But that's only going to be for one turn. Once you start going against a 13k Vanguard, so against the Grade 3, this card is going to hit 12k, and it's still not enough. Like, you don't create any good numbers, and unless you get a booster or a trigger, this card's not going to hit over it.
Yeah.
Okay, so vanilla, I mean, I don't have to tell anyone to change that, right?
Yes, except if we get some vanilla support, but from what we see, we don't get any, so...
I mean, unless they're going to make Cyclone playable in Standard, or you're going to play a Standard deck with the Cyclone support, I don't think you're playing that.
Exactly.
Okay, so Security Patroller. I mean, this card is good. Like, you don't always use it, because sometimes you just have enough of imprisonment without using him. But it's a really cool support for our Snow. So our Seraph Snow imprisons 2, and this one imprisons 1, so we get on the 3 imprisoned cards, even if our opponent didn't leave anything in jail. So that's awesome. I don't really think you need it on 4 though, but it's definitely much better than our secondary Grade 3 that imprisons a unit if its attack hits a Vanguard, I think?
Yes.
So
exactly.
It's absolutely much better, so I would rather play that Grade 2 than our secondary Grade 3. Okay.
Talk about getting to the best card in the deck.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, Seraph Snow is just amazing. I'm actually even thinking about building a premium deck with Seraph Snow instead of the using units with force markers, because this card is awesome. So Seraph Snow, we don't really have to talk that much about it. I mean, it gets plus 10k if your opponent has 2 cards imprisoned, which he is going to have if you just counterblast 1 and imprison 2. Of course, unless your opponent didn't play any units on the field.
Actually, not if 2 are imprisoned, if 1 or more are imprisoned.
Oh.
Even better.
Okay, yeah, so, okay, your opponent just has to get 1 card imprisoned for that effect. And if he didn't call out of the prison, he already did from the Grade 2 in the right chain, because it imprisons 1 card from his or her hand, so...
Exactly.
And then we have a prison. I mean, this card is very good. And with that, I mean, it soul charges you free, which you can absolutely use. But when it comes to calling out, it's pretty easy for your opponent to call units out again, even after you imprison them. So I think it would be great if you could make a cost for calling cards out a bit higher. I mean, not that the prison itself should have a higher cost, because that would be kinda too broken, because this deck already has the most potential out of all of the starter decks, if you ask me. Because the thing is, currently every deck can afford to call cards out, because none of the decks are really using that much counterblast. But once the decks are going to change and be a bit more counterblast heavy, like it happens in V, it happened in G, so they're probably going to become more counterblast heavy. And after they do, this deck is really going to shine, because your opponent will essentially have to choose between doing his plussing, his pushing, or actually getting cards back from you. Because after you imprison their cards, they have to call them back if they want to push with them. if they want to use the effect to plus, they will also be using resources, and by limiting their resources, this deck, I mean, is going to be awesome. But if you could actually also higher up the cost of your opponent getting cards out of the prison, that would be amazing. But I think they have to solve that with the effects, so the certain units would make the cost higher, or that you would get some other orders that would higher up the cost for a prison, or maybe another prison with a higher cost if to be overplayed over this one or something, and you would have an actual condition to have this prison to play the other one or something like that. Because if you just enable them to play another prison or something, that would be kind of bad for the game itself. Okay, yes. Cyber, please. I've been talking so much that you didn't get the word, so please.
Oh, I don't mind. I hate this deck. I already hate that they're trying to make a deck with this card, because you know what I play in premium. I need my counterblasts.
Oh, I'm just sad about one thing.
What?
When I think about this deck. Why did you sold Azel?
Oh, why sold Azel? I needed the money for Mordred. I needed the...
I mean, against Azel, I think this card would be even better.
Yeah, well, thank God I sold Azel. Well, that was like a year ago now?
Yeah. No, probably more. We have a quarantine for over a year.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well, I sold Azel, I don't mind, because now, my pretty boy Mordred right here. Yes, I already pulled my Mordred out of my deck. I love it. Love the card.
So Cyber's doing a confession, okay.
Oh, bleep that. Gonna set a reminder for that later. But yes, best card in the deck. Could use a higher cost to summon from prison. Agreed. Right chain, I think it's
yeah, good. But I mean, even if we don't get a higher cost, I mean, after the decks are going to get more counterblast heavy, I think it would balance itself out a bit.
It will balance itself, or we could just take the mechanic from, or we could just steal Dragon Empire's mechanic. I overdress my prison with prison number 2.
I mean, wasn't that one of the things I said?
Well, yes, technically. I just. Okay, now.
Okay, yeah. So this is it for this one. We're already on 13 minutes. So that's this for now. We will see you all soon. And we hope you enjoyed this video. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you want. And we will see you all soon. Bye.